Dear students, our discussion in the previous class about the stylized facts of economic growth raises several interesting questions. Let us see some of these interesting questions in the context of economic growth. One is, how can we explain why most countries experience economic growth over time? Why most countries experience economic growth over time? If you look around, you will see that most of the countries of the world experience economic growth. Some countries are experiencing rapid economic growth. Some countries experience slow economic growth. Whatever, countries experience economic growth. The second issue is, why do some countries display convergence while others do not experience convergence? Why convergence? That is, over time, some countries grow at a very fast rate so that the living standard of these countries converge to a common standard. For example, the case of Japan, the case of South Korea, these economies experienced rapid growth in the post-Second World War period, and the standard of living of the Koreans or the Japanese is equal to the standard of living of many Europeans. But such a convergence is not taking place in the case of many Asian and African countries. The third question is, why some countries are growth miracles, whereas others are growth disasters? Some countries show growth miracles, very rapid growth, like China, East Asian countries like Taiwan, Korea, Hong Kong, etc. Whereas some countries are growth disasters, like some African countries, sub-Saharan countries, etc. So these are some of the issues which we have to consider when we discuss about economic growth. Now, the starting point of answering these questions is Solow growth model. The starting point of answering these questions is the Solow growth model. A model introduced by R.M. Solow in his book, A Contribution to the Theory of Economic Growth, published in 1956. A Contribution to the Theory of Economic Growth, published in 1956. And for his contributions to the theory of economic growth, Solow has received Nobel Prize in Economics. And Solow model has shown that saving rate and population growth, saving rate and population growth determines economic growth. Or stated differently, saving rate which determines capital accumulation and population growth together determine economic growth. And we will explain in detail the Solow model and the role of saving rate, capital accumulation and population growth in determining economic growth and living standards. And as it is known to you, when the economies grow, standard of living also grow. The standard of living of the present generation, for example, is much higher than the standard of living of the earlier generations. That is, the quality of life, the conveniences available to us is much more than the quality of life and the conveniences available to our parents and grandparents. And also, in many countries of the world, per capita income experienced doubling, tripling, etc. over the last 50 or 100 years. And while discussing the growth models, our goal is to understand what causes differences in income over time across countries. And you will see that there are rich countries, poor countries, middle income countries. So our goal in the subject economic growth is to explain what causes differences in income over time across countries. And income and its growth depends on capital, depends on labor, and depends on technology. So we explain differences in income as originating from differences in capital per head, differences in the availability of labor and the quality of labor, productivity of labor, and also differences in production technology. So differences in the standard of living across the nations results from differences in capital accumulation, differences in production technology, and the differences in the growth rate of labor force. And our task is to develop a theory of economic growth known as Solow growth model as against the static Keynesian model. The static Keynesian model. Keynesian model of income determination is concerned with the equilibrium level of income at a particular point of time. It says nothing about the rate of growth of income over time. So Solow model is concerned with the dynamics of economic development to explain why our national income grows, why some countries grow faster than others, And to explain why our national income grows over time, why some countries grow faster than others, Solow model shows how how population growth and how technical progress affect the level of an economy's output and its growth over time. So in the Solow model, we explain economic growth, the level of output and its growth over time in terms of savings, population growth and technical progress. The same as capital, labor and technology. So in the neoclassical Solow model of growth, we explain economic growth in terms of savings and capital accumulation, population growth and technological progress. And we analyze Solow model in the context of a closed economy with no government. We assume that economy is closed, there is no government, and we explain the interplay between savings and capital accumulation, population growth and labor force growth, and technological progress to explain what is known as the level of an economy's output and its growth over time. And the Solow model is widely used as a model of economic growth. It is also known as neoclassical model of economic growth. And in the Solow model, the ultimate source of growth of per capita income is technical progress. But Solow did not model it. So in the Solow model, growth is exogenous. Later, Romer and others modeled technological progress. So growth is endogenous. So the development of endogenous growth theories. As they explain the sources of growth within the structure of the model itself. But in the Solow model, the ultimate source of growth is not modeled. Solow uses the term technology is like a manna falling from heaven, something which is unknown to us, or simply he pretends he didn't understand it, or simply he didn't model it. So growth is exogenous in the Solow model of growth. And in the next session, we will discuss the assumptions on which Solow model is based.